Hari Om. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our next session of Kindle Life. As usual, let us begin our session with prayers.
जन कल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Kindle Life. We are starting the study of a basic text, no doubt. It's going to be very subtle and very deep. Therefore, my request to all of you is that you do pay attention while we read, and the book in hand will make all the difference. That's it.
Yesterday, we saw in chapter 1 the difference between freedom and licentiousness. The essential nature of man is freedom, but it can only be truly enjoyed when there is intelligent self-restraint and self-discipline. Misuse of this freedom will lead to sorrow, and that is called licentiousness. In chapter 2, we saw that dexterity in facing the challenges of the world is the real problem. How you face or with what attitude you face the challenges will determine your quotient of happiness. Gracious and grateful acceptance of what you have been gifted with give you peace within. Our scriptures guide us in the science of better living, self-development, and ultimately in the experience of supreme reality. This was a brief summation of what we have done in the past two chapters. Let us begin today with chapter number 3. Whose title is Man's Heritage. Independence is the very essence of, and he who has disengaged himself from his slavish dependence upon the world of objects for gaining his flashes of joy is truly independent. Others are only beings who, like feathers in the summer breeze, are tossed about hither and thither by the problems and challenges of the world. The sense objects of the world present to us a false glitter of joy. To resist this call of flesh, the all-consuming onslaught of our senses, is the privilege and glory of man. Such a man of perfection stands out like a lighthouse in the sea of life, graceful and unaffected by the lashes of the turbulent waves. Not knowing this art of independent living, we remain like a neglected boat on the agitated ocean of material changes. To reach the quiet and peaceful harbor of perfection, we will have to follow the technique adopted by a mariner who is lost on the high seas. Man being essentially divine by nature, the call of the higher is in the bosom of every one of us. But while facing the challenges of life, we know not the right direction in which to turn. The scriptures, like a true compass, always indicate the right direction. And just as the mariner trusts the accuracy of the compass and moves on, we will have to steer our ship of life with faith in and devotion to the scriptures until we attain the higher state of peace and perfection. A man who has gained mastery over his environment and consequently remains calm but unmoved by them is generally mistaken to be but an inert statue which remains unaffected by either a garland offered around its neck or a crow sitting on its head. There is a general criticism and condemnation of such a man, for his state is apparent indifference and disinterest in the affairs of the world. Such feelings arise out of our ignorance of his supreme achievement. For it is not true to say that such a man is devoid of emotions. He certainly has them, but does not allow them to overwhelm him. An emotion or sympathy for another is certainly a virtue, but emotionalism ruins one's poise and balance in life and is an impediment to any progress, either material or spiritual. Sentiments adorn a person, but sentimentalism is an ugly scar on his personality. The ancient masters of this great country were mighty stalwarts who stood amid storms as firm as the great Himalayas. Their emotions and sentiments made their hearts bleed for the suffering humanity, but their heads were above the clouds in the ever peaceful realm of the high ideal. A man may be tossed about by uncertain storms of life, but the solution to it lies in his own efforts in finding an ideal in life and then raising his personality from the level of petty emotions to the loftier heights of the chosen ideal. The secret of success in life, thus, lies in keeping the head above the storms of the heart. A successful man never allows his faculty of discrimination and judgment to be disturbed by the rising tides of his emotions. Let us be dedicated to an accepted and well tested ideal, and let us develop the courage to live our convictions fully, entirely, and wholly. This intellectual honesty, to live true to our conviction in full dedication to the ideal, adds a serene cadence to our individual lives. The success and beauty of individual life help to build the glory and effectiveness of the nation. It is a beautiful small chapter, but there is so much of content for us in it, for us to understand, to adopt in our lives, to ponder over certain ideas which have been mentioned earlier. Let us, as usual, just have a glance at some of the words which are probably not so used by us. So in chapter 3, I found cadence, which is mentioned in the last paragraph of the chapter. This intellectual honesty, to live true to our conviction and full dedication to the ideal, adds a serene cadence to our individual life. It simply means rhythm or harmony, which makes our life better. The things that I found to keep in mind in chapter number 3 was this particular sentence. The scriptures, like a true compass, always indicate the right direction. We have also known from Gandhiji's talks himself that whenever he faced a problem during the struggle of independence, he always used to turn to the Bhagavad Gita to find a solution. And no matter which page he opened, he found that solution. But over here, I would like Jagdish to perhaps explain a little bit about this paragraph. That is paragraph number 3, whereby it is mentioned the scriptures, like a true compass, always indicate until we attain the higher state of peace and perfection.
Sure. As very, very clearly it is mentioned over here. A mariner's compass. Sure. As very, very clearly it is mentioned over here. A mariner's compass. I'm sure have traveled on ships on board, and if you were lucky that you were in the midst of a turmoil or a great storm, nothing can you see outside. There is just thick blanket of water and wind. You can't do anything. At such a moment, there is nothing else that we can do but to have complete trust and faith in the mariner's compass, which the captain understands to flooded water. The entire ocean is a massive wave. In the same way, when problems come in our life, emotions take over and our mind gets clouded. That time, the scriptures, the Shastras, act as a guide because there they have given the solutions to almost all the problems that humans come across. This is what, in short, it means.
That's wonderful. I think we can take a lot from there. Also, in chapter number 3, there were 2 particular instances that I found that we should think about or ponder. The first one is, see whether you can find it in this short chapter. To resist this call of flesh, the all-consuming onslaught of our senses is the privilege of glory of man. I think there is something over here very interesting that we can ponder upon. The second is a slightly larger sentence. Once again, I ask you to find this. An emotion or sympathy. It begins with an emotion or sympathy. For another is certainly a virtue, but emotionalism ruins one's poise and balance in life and is an impediment to any progress, either or spiritual. Sentiments adorn a person, but sentimentalism is an ugly scar on his personality.
It's really something that we can.
I know for sure that I have found such instances in my personal life where, having got carried away with emotionalism, have taken certain wrong decisions and choices. So let us ponder whether in our lives such situations have come, and let us see how we can be guided through this learning as to not fall prey to such instances again. Shall we now continue with chapter number 4?
Sure.
Let's do that. Chapter 4, the joy of living. Man in his pilgrimage from the womb to the tomb is incessantly motivated and propelled by 2 inevitable impulses, namely revulsion to sorrow and craving for joy. He avoids and discards disagreeable things and unconducive environment and runs after the agreeable and the conducive. Thus, as objects and environment keep continuously changing in the world, man engages himself in an endless chase after happiness. The methods employed by different individuals in procuring it may be distinct and varied, but the goal sought after is common to all. It should therefore be interesting to analyze and discover where exactly happiness is located. Our firm belief today is that the joys we experience through our senses lie in the objects of the world. Consistent with this belief, we are constantly engaged in acquiring, possessing, and aggrandizing more and more wealth. But a little reflection reveals to us that the acquisition and possession of wealth is no measure of the quantum of one's happiness. We are but too familiar with the striking contradictions in the life between a millionaire sitting and mourning in his palatial apartments and an ill clad peasant roaring in ecstatic joy amidst his poor circumstances. Again, if the joy is inherent in the sense objects, then each object should provide the same quantum of joy to all those who come in contact with it. Obviously, this is far from the truth. For instance, a cigarette fills one with joy and satisfaction, while it drives another mad with annoyance. What is the cause for the satisfaction of one and the annoyance of the other? This leads us to the fundamental question: what is happiness? On a careful analysis, we find that man's happiness is entirely a subjective phenomenon, for there seems to be a distinct and clear relationship between the state of his mind and the joy or sorrow that is experienced by him. When the mind is agitated, excuse me, when the mind is agitated, sorrow is experienced, and when it is tranquil, there is joy. Happiness, therefore, is measured by the tranquility of one's mind. Man, the roof and crown of creation, has the unique capacity of quietening his mind without helplessly depending upon the objects around him. But this capacity now lies dormant in him, and he, unaware of it, foolishly tries to procure happiness through the objects of the world, which have only a false glitter of joy. They can give indeed no enduring and everlasting satisfaction. Our great religious books help us to awaken and promote this dormant faculty in man. He need not run after the sense objects to attain some fleeting experience of joy. He can get engaged in a more permanent and a fuller happiness, which is wholly independent of the availability of agreeable objects and environment. Such a man stands like a beacon light emitting the light of perfection, which serves as a guide to those who are still being tossed about in the sea of life's turbulence. This ends our chapter 4. I think it is an incredible chapter which gives us such marvelous insight into what we consider is happiness and establishes that happiness is independent of any wealth or independent of any object that materials can provide us. In fact, we now know for sure that happiness lies totally in our mind, in the state of our mind. And man himself has forgotten the capacity, or that capacity lies dormant in him, which quietens his mind without having any dependence on the objects that are available. There is something that I would like Jagdish to enlighten upon, which is in the last paragraph of this chapter number 4, which says he can get engaged in a more permanent and fuller happiness, which is wholly independent of the availability of agreeable objects and environment. What do you think this means, Jagdish?
In the previous chapter, it was very clearly explained that a person who sees that, I am wearing just chappals, and look at the other man, he is wearing shoes. You want those shoes because you feel the shoes are better than chappals. It will give you more pleasure. So when our mind is continuously looking outward for pleasure, for happiness, you will constantly be running in the direction where you will want things. And this will never end. Shall I give a small example?
Sure.
As a child, at least boys, all the boys wanted a toy car. And when the toy car was with us, whatever happened while eating, studying, and even while sleeping, we wanted the toy car in our hand to go to sleep. As the boys grow up, slowly what happens is his mind reaches to a bicycle. Then his mind gets focused on bicycle. What happened to the toy car? Is in Toyota, as Guruji says it, in cars. We are all wanting cars. Do you think this is ever going to end? After car, you will need something else. After something else, you'll need something else. But amongst all these objects, when we put our mind carefully and think, did that object give us happiness, or that happiness was within you which rose automatically? For example, the best calm and happy you are when you get a sound sleep. Is there anything better in this world than a perfectly sound sleep? No. What objects are there in the sleep? Yes, bed is there before sleep. A quiet room is there before sleep. Air conditioning, everything is there before sleep. Once your mind has fallen asleep, all objects are there. Therefore, to understand that objects give you happiness is a base level of understanding. Yes, they give you temporary happiness. This is what my understanding thinks.
It's wonderful.
Thanks.
So in chapter number 4, let us see which is the word which, once again, we can think about. Aggrandizing. Increase in power, stature, or wealth, which amounts to hoarding.
Hoarding.
Something for us to keep in mind. This particular sentence, he, that is man, can get engaged in a more permanent and fuller happiness, which is wholly independent of the availability of agreeable objects and environment. I think this is something we can really think about. Also, two other points to ponder upon deeply. What is happiness? And second, happiness, therefore, is measured by the tranquility of one's mind. These two particular things we can ponder about nicely. I think we can begin with chapter number 5 also. Let us just touch upon it. Chapter number 5 is the dual path. Material prosperity by itself cannot provide happiness to an individual if he has not developed a healthy inner personality with a keen aptitude for living life dynamically and fully. Intelligent self restraint and discipline, as prescribed in our scriptures, create such an aptitude. Self control and discipline are detested by modern man who considers them as shackles put on his natural freedom, and therefore he repels any idea of spiritual practice. This feeling is naturally aroused in those who are not trained to follow religious injunctions and precepts with an opportunity to intelligently understand and appreciate their efficacy as a practical code of healthy living. Unintelligent denial of sense enjoyment causes mental suppression, which leads to frustration or cynicism. This is responsible for the general abhorrence for religion. To condemn religious precepts on the above score is like calling a dog mad and killing it. For religion helps man's personality to blossom forth, enjoy a better and more cheerful life. An intelligent and proper understanding of the laws governing man's inner personality inspires higher ideals in his inward expansion. The lower tendencies in him automatically drop off. The consequent rejection of lower values following his higher understanding is sublimation as opposed to suppression, which the scriptures envisage. Notwithstanding one's own knowledge of good and bad, the guidance provided by religious doctrines, one seems to constantly gravitate to the lower and vulgar actions provided by religious doctrines. One seems to constantly gravitate to the lower and vulgar actions of life. It is so amazing that man knowingly chooses a path which is detrimental to his ultimate prosperity. The great rishis investigated into this question and arrived at clear and precise conclusions. But today, we will conclude our session over here, and tomorrow we will go back into this chapter number 5, read it again, and think of how other answers are given to us about our own problems. So, Jagdish, let us end this session with prayers as you are given to us about our own problems. So, Jagdish, let us end this session with prayers as usual. Let us join our hands, thank God for the wonderful life that we have and for this wonderful opportunity to get a glimpse into our age old scriptures, where so many saints and Mahatmas have given us this incredible opportunity. How many things that we have to thank for, to be thankful for. So let us all close our eyes, take a moment, be silent, and join me in the prayer.
Asito ma sadgamaya, ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, ma jyotirgamaya, mrityormamritam gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti